What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you tuning in. We're going to talk a little bit about the Suns, but really, we're going to talk a little bit about Mat Ishbia. I have a interesting, just back and forth belief with this guy. If you've followed along on this podcast over the last year, I have said probably no less than 10 times that Mat Ishbia might be the second worst kind of owner that you can have. The worst kind of owner is what the Clippers used to have and what some of these franchises have, where they know the dirty little secret that you can put out a team where you don't spend any money at all. You win 20 games, but because of the revenue sharing and because of ticket sales, you're still going to make money. So they're perfectly fine not trying to be competitive and just win money or just take a little bit of money. That's the worst kind of owner that you can have. The second worst is when they go completely the other way, which is what Mat Ishbia has been for Phoenix since he's gotten there. A guy that thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, a guy that wants to win right away and doesn't believe in, developing a team and a organization and just wants to go out. And so what ends up happening is what he's done, where you mortgage the future for a trade for Bradley Beal. Then you start trying to salvage things. You just keep firing and going through head coaches. You just demand results in a way that works in corporate America sometimes, but doesn't really work in managing a team where you're going to have things like a separate or second apron. You're going to have things like a lottery and a draft, and that, your draft picks actually matter and assets matter. That's not the way he thinks. That's not the way that he operates. He's just, all he knows is full speed ahead. The problem with that is you crash, which is what happened to this franchise. And it's what looks like it's going to be stuck in meddling here for the next few years. So I've been pretty critical of him in the past. One of the other things that he does that's kind of frustrating is he constantly goes on social media or on Twitter and in front of the camera, and he's got a little bark to him. Like he doesn't mind firing back at critics. He doesn't mind firing back at national pundits that kind of criticize him. There was a thing between him and Stephen A. Smith where Smith had said that he's in danger of becoming the worst owner of all time, and then he came back and was just like, "I'm definitely not Donald Sterling. He's correct. Definitely not this, not the other." And I think he was right in that situation. What Stephen A. Smith was, I don't think he was implying it was all the extra stuff like off the court management, but what he was implying was the way that he has handled his team as an owner and managing itself. There's starting to be an argument for that because of how bad and bleak the future looks and how they were a team that had just gotten to the finals when he took over. The thing is, that is kind of the situation with Ishbia. I don't always think that he's wrong in some of the things that he fires back on the critics. I just don't love an owner that's active on social media and that does fire back at the critics. It was okay at times when it was like Mark Cuban with the Mavericks, but any other owner that you see today, like, it's just not a thing. It's, to me, anytime you have somebody that constantly has to go out of their way and try and fire back at critics, like Kevin Durant does, it speaks to an insecurity. It speaks to kind of a lack of maturity in sometimes. And that's where I go with kind of where Ishbia is. Now, this is certainly a much more mild case. It's not one that I think was like egregious by any means, but he does it again where he kind of decides that he wants to fire a couple shots at Bill Simmons. Now, Bill Simmons owns The Ringer. It's something where he just comes up with hot takes, talks with his buddies about basketball, and it's just a conversation around hoops. I think the way that Ishbia fired at him was, a little bit lighthearted, a little bit of fun, but also like it kind of again speaks to his insecurity of he doesn't want anyone to question him and doubt him, and when he does, all he knows is to kind of throw money at things and to like really try and hammer down. It doesn't work all the time in the NBA like that. That's just not the way that the league works. You have to be able to develop. You have to be able to do things. So the Ringer came up with a bunch of takes kind of going into the season, and one of them was that the Suns are going to have the worst defense in the NBA. I think that's a terrible take. I think they got younger, more athletic. I think having Dylan Brooks is certainly going to help in that situation. You have Mark Williams, I think now who can defend the rim. I don't think that's by any case. I don't even know if they'll be in the top 10. There's a lot of teams that come right off the top of the head. The Lakers are going to be way worse defensively, I would think, than them. There's a lot of teams that they are going to be ahead of defensively. I think they're going to be in the middle of the pack, maybe the back end of the middle of the pack, but they're going to be, in that 17 to 20 range, somewhere around there is where I think they'll be by the end of the season. Well, Ishbia decides to quote the article and tweets out to Bill Simmons that you and your crew have some good takes and some that are terrible. You're the betting guru, and even you know better than to actually take this bet. Tell you what, go put your money where your mouth is on this take. When you lose, I will donate the same amount to charity of your choice. Different culture, different team in Phoenix this year. Let's go. Again, I think he was pretty lighthearted. I don't think he, in the scheme of things, it didn't come across to me like someone that was really, offended by the take. But it comes across to me as a guy that feels like someone's questioning, his moves again, and he gets a little insecure and, has to feel like he constantly seems like someone who's trying to prove himself at being a basketball mind and is constantly questioned because all the results to this point have not been good, that he has not looked like he is a basketball mind. And so he gets very defensive, and then his insecurities come out in this. It was, it's a minor thing, but again, he looks a little insecure with the situation. Why do people feel the need to respond? I don't look at these responses and think that you are gaining people's respect, that you are all of a sudden people are going to see that tweet and be like, hey, he's right. It's a throwaway article. It's a throwaway segment that they did on the Ringer, and he's giving it attention that it did deserve. And he constantly does these things that are these little ticks that speak to a guy that is getting tired of defending himself, or is constantly needs to let people know that he believes in himself, or to try and prove himself. Trying to prove yourself isn't a bad thing. Being insecure when you're getting criticized for doing a pretty bad job to this point, it's not for a lack of trying. And I've said that before too. He certainly swings for the fences and he wants to win. But I think he also, more than wanting to win, he wants to be known as the guy that made them win. He wants to be known as the guy making the moves that no one else saw, that they thought wouldn't happen. And it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked yet. Doesn't look great for the foreseeable future. And he refuses to kind of acknowledge that, and instead gets really defensive. I just don't think it's a great look. Don't respond to these things. Just keep your head down. Find a way to try and get a team that's winning. Be proud of the effort. They had a great win on opening night. They got a young team that's going to be a lot more enjoyable for fans to watch, that's going to compete. That should be enough. I don't think you have to do things like this. But this is Mat Ishbia to a T. This is what he has been so far. A guy that makes wild moves, have panned out, and then a guy that gets very defensive and kind of insecure when he gets questioned about it. And constantly has to try and tell people that he's the smartest guy in the room and knows what's going on. I don't love it. I don't love it. I wish you want to take to these public forums to do these types of things. I just don't think it brings the desired result that he's looking for. What do you guys think? Am I overreacting on that? Do you like an owner that kind of fires back at people and it has a little bit of, you know, that in his makeup. I didn't love it when KD did this. I don't really love it when Ishbia does it. I just wish people could ignore that. You don't ever see like Booker do something like this. You don't ever do see a lot of the guys that are established give value to people that are criticizing them. They just go about their business. But Ishbia is loud. Like plain and simple, that is his thing. He makes loud moves. He defends them very loudly, and then when he gets criticized, he fires back in this kind of way. That's just his makeup. I don't love that portion of it. I don't love a lot of the moves that he makes. I do love that he is an owner that wants to win, and it is very evident. I just wish he took a little bit more of a backseat and let people that were basketball minds kind of run a little bit more of the operations and was a little bit more behind the scenes than what he is. Not for me. But what do you guys think? You okay with it? Maybe? I don't know. That not for me.